and gentlemen, we now head to our final panel discussion for IIC, and it holds immense supply chain and also cover how manage their supply chains. I would like to invite on stage and asset logistics. 5+ years his expertise in safety. Ladies and gentlemen, Pal Singh, Managing Director, Singh's thought leadership in supply chain strategy. Mr. Amritpal Singh. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, Rajiv Bhattacharya, Vice India, a known for his through strategic vision. Take a moment to introduce Mr. Supply Chain Operations. Overall operational efficiency has been key in driving fostering strong applause for Mr. Amar Singh. I'd like to welcome Ms. Priya, South Asia. The chemicals and industry to improve sustainability. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Head of Mastery in Supply stand out. Please on stage.
Pleased to welcome you all. Today, aspect of modern logistics from Indian context. Events like this, because they bring all supply chain and logistics from various industries. So I would like to thank Also welcome our the length of bread. When it's come to its improve the supply chain and logistics. COVID, our years after that, we started with legal issues which are currently happening as we speak, and it only not only disrupt the whole supply chain worldwide, but also it has impact some way or other way in India as well. To add to that complexities, in my opinion, there are also kind of challenges of basically fluctuating demand, kind of the prices which are going up, whether it's a real estate or labor or kind of inflation, high inflationary environment in India. Also, on top of that, customer expectations are going up quite significantly day by day. People are expecting, as we heard from the previous session, that people are expecting really deliveries very fast. And last but not the least, technology is rapidly changing, and it is changing at such a pace that you talk about an app, and by the time or a system, and by the time we implement and settle, something new has come up, which kind of think uh, suppose you to think how we should go about it. Having all these kind of complexities that we speak in logistics arena, which is there currently, that all of us are facing towards, business are really facing a lot of challenges to ensure that our logistics operations are kind of streamlined, it is efficient, as well as it is cost effective. This is where, in my view, 4PL comes into play, and where uh, as it offers end-to-end solution, which offers kind of the processes and systems to streamline as well as cost effective solutions that that we are looking at. This is this the backbone of 4PL is really, I think, on top of other things that we mentioned, is a technology. I think that really, in my opinion, plays an important role. So while these are some of the challenges as we mentioned, and also there are kind of the systems that we are looking at in terms of future, the businesses in India and also worldwide are as we discussed, they are navigating through really kind of increasingly complex environment. And in this environment, it is the ability to tap into solutions like 4PL. It just not, it's, in my opinion, it is not just a kind of competitive advantage, but it's also necessity of today's world. And today, we we are going to see how 4PL solution is going to help various industries to not only optimize their processes, systems, remove inefficiencies from various operations, but how it also help improve customer service and eventually optimize your cost, and especially in a competitive market like India. I'm sure at the end of this session, all of you will kind of have leveraged a good opportunity to hear thoughts, and probably could take back some inputs from our eminent speakers, and take back to your businesses, and hopefully it will help you to implement or at least think about how we should go about 4PL. Without further delay, I think let's get into discussion. So I would like to kick off this session with a question to Mr. Rajiv. Rajiv, when it comes to 4PL, I speak to a lot of people, not only in India, but when I travel abroad. There is a lot of misconception that we kind of face regarding 4PL, and what actually is 4PL, what it does. There is very thin line. People feel that between 3PL and 4PL. That's the general opinion that I perceive. Can you briefly explain in simple terms what does 4PL kind of entail towards, and how it differs from a traditional logistics providers like 3PL?
Yeah, thank you, Nitin. Okay. I thought someone is already cheering us. If you see 4PL as a concept, I think it's not even actually a decade old. I think it's evolving at this moment, and that's why there are a lot of misconception about what exactly is a 4PL. Uh, now to basically dissect the whole thing, so 4PL is primarily comes on a strategic level. So you start at a strategic level managing your supply chain. So from there, you start getting into designing your supply chain, designing the entire overall value chain for the company, and then get into the execution mode. Compared to a 3PL, which actually does more on a execution mode. So 3PL is more executable in nature, whereas 4PL comes at a strategic and executable level. So 4PL in that sense is more of an integrator. They are integrating different logistics service providers, whether it's a warehousing, whether it's transportation, whether it's the first mile or the last mile. I think they're trying to integrate everything and bring a solution for the companies. Now, why does this kind of companies trying to adopt a 4PL? So one of the reason I think is sticking to the core competencies where they have the core competencies, they want to stick to that and leave the supply chain part to the people who knows the subject better. And then it comes in terms of integrating multiple suppliers, multiple logistic vendors. To integrate them on a platform is also a big challenge. So that's where the differentiation between a 3PL and a 4PL comes into picture, where they are integrating everything and giving a more wider uh, access to the customers. So that's the main difference between a 4PL and a 3PL. What I think at this stage now.
No, absolutely. I think very well said. And in fact, one of the common misconception also probably is about 4PL is not necessarily that they need to have their own assets. For example, either warehouses or trucks. I think that's where people probably fall kind of, oh yeah, that company doesn't own any warehouse or they don't have any fleet. So how can they be a 4PL company? So something like that. Anybody else in the panel would like to add anything to what Mr. Rajiv has said?
Very well articulated by Rajiv. This is Ronit once again. I understand that we are mid of the lunch break, and I'm figuring out to gain the energy from the audience. And fortunately or unfortunately, I'm looking for the audience as well. Now, coming back to the online audience who will be going to watch this video later. What Rajiv has mentioned is that 4PL are the orchestrator for the businesses. Yeah, they are integrating, of course. And top of that, they are also enabling the businesses in the sense of delivering the things without having a upfront heavy investments. And that is one key points when 4PL comes into play. At the same time, when the businesses are deciding in the sense of what things and what technology or what things that we are trying to integrate to the business, at the same time, 4PL having the advantage of the pool of the service providers. At the same time, they are also understanding the business needs and they are able to provide the infra to the businesses that they are seeking for. And that is where the 4PL, comes into more and larger players. Fortunately, we can say that India is moving towards that direction. I will not cover that answer right now, but there is another question going to be in and around that. So I will touch base about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah. So I just want to add one point right here. So many times 4PL will not always save money for the company at the initial stage at least, because you require end-to-end transparency to control. And in that case, company might need to invest a lot of money at an initial stage rather than going to a 3PL. So that's where I feel maybe 3PL, 4PL can be a tricky subject when you compare the cost at the initial stage.
100%. I think very well said, Amartya. I think I cannot agree more. It's like an investment that you make upfront basically for future, which would basically, you will have at later, maybe 2 years, 5 years or something down the line. Continuing the next question, Mr. Amritpal, I would like to really touch base upon. So when we look at 4PL, it is quite while Mr. Rajiv already said, I think it's already a decade or more than decade. I think it's about 20, 25 years old concept, at least when I look at, and the concept was actually introduced by one of the consulting companies. Yeah. So, which basically, but unfortunately, it has not gained as popularity as probably, 3PL. So when I look at countries abroad, the 4PL concept as such is quite matured. People are still willing to adopt 4PL. People are in fact, it is quite established in some of the companies, and they are really seeing benefits of implementing 4PL. How does maturity of 4PL in India when you compare with some other developed countries, and what factors do you think contribute to the difference that we have in India versus other countries?
Yeah. Okay. Hi. First of all, thanks for having me on this discussion. Yeah. Uh, if we look at any of the foreign countries, like when we're talking about largely about US or Europe, when we look at these supply chains over there, although they are complex, but they're complex in a different way compared to India. When we look at India, India's mostly inward. I mean, most of the supply chain is inward. Within India, the complexities. Whereas when you look at US and Europe, their complexities is intercontinentals. So their logistic complexity, supply chains are actually simpler for them, but complex because of the geographies involved. That's why they feel that if there is another party which is more versed with the logistic part of things, and can create a digital or an information stack accordingly, can even develop their own softwares or personalize the softwares also, they would do more justice and bring in efficiencies. Okay. um when we talk about India, then in this parallels, we are not that much export oriented. Now few companies are coming in with good export. Some names come to mind, like Eicher has now started exporting across the world, and then Bajaj has started. So, and now the supply chain is hitting them also, in this manner, that maybe it is something they want to do themselves, or they want to offload it. But previously that was not the case. Secondly, I would say in India, smaller players, or in fact mid-level players, the digital stack is not still mature. Okay. You don't have the right level of investment in your WMS, in your TMS, so that you can create a information proper highway which can then be offloaded to a 4PL. And so now when you bring a 4PL into the picture to do that, it becomes expensive, which just now our a colleague was talking about. So that is a second point where the hindrance comes in going for a 4PL. Thirdly is the fragmented market in India, because our truckers are still not large enough, and they are not investing enough into the technology. It has started, but I think it will take some time, I would say. I would want my fellow colleagues to add to it. I think 2-3 reasons, large reasons are these only, right? Yeah.
I just want to add, he has actually explained it very well, very well.
Yeah.
See, India as a country is a non-invested country in supply chain.
Yeah.
If you go back 25, 30 years back, a Munshi used to manage a factory, and he was a supply chain for them.
See.
Now, slowly it has evolved from FMCG now to e-commerce, and now we are interacting with the customer. 4PL, the biggest thing is trust. And to create that trust, you need technology.
Yeah.
Now, the core companies, any company, even I have worked in many companies, we have not invested in technology to actually control the 4PL. And that is the reason 4PL has not grown in India in such way as the European or US market has grown.
I think probably, if I reflect on what you just mentioned, I think it could be also one of the reasons that we are still manual. So, for example, in countries like Europe or developed countries, where things are quite automated, whether you look at palletized dispatch, where barcode scanners or maybe even RFIDs, they are quite prominent, where linking to system becomes quite easier as compared to probably where we are still into more of a manual kind of set.
And not only manual. See, Indian geography is complex. Then you see the mix of logistics what we are using.
Correct.
We use maximum roadways, right? Which
That's
is one of the most expensive. If you go to European countries or US country, there you will see lot of ocean freight and all. So, and the type of warehousing audits or maybe freight forwarders are there, that is in a very different quality overall.
Absolutely. You want to add?
So
Yeah.
if you really see the evolution of 4PL, now if you see the automobile industries, now because of the complexities of their supply chain, which includes 50, 60, 100 vendors from where spare parts are or the spare parts are coming. Now to augment everything, now first this automobile industry introduced the VMI, vendor managed inventory system. Then you had the jet management system. You had the shop floor support system, replenishing on the floor. So that's the starting point what happened. And then overall, then the people coming and saying, oh, fine, I do the end-to-end part of it. So automobile industry, if I see, I think the adaptation is very high of 4PL. And also the new age e-commerce companies where they want the scalability. I think that's where the adaptation is very high at this moment. And if you, that's the reason I said about a decade, it is getting formalized in India. Although this has been there in bits and pieces, but in terms of formalization, calling it as a true 4PL, I think it's about a decade or maybe 15 years.
Thank you, Rajesh. Just moving on a little bit, while we are still on like 3PL, 4PL. Priyanka, I would like to come to you. Like, how does basically a 4PL service provider would collaborate with traditional 3PL? The reason I'm asking is when you introduce a 4PL for 3PLs, it feels almost like a competitor is coming to really and trying to take control over their operations. So there is a traditional kind of resistance, natural resistance, anybody, and it runs into quite a few months, and then implementation becomes a really big challenge when we try to implement. How do we or how to strike a balance between such situation when you look at 3PL and 4PL relationships and to in order to successfully implement 4PL? What's your thoughts, take on that?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Nitin. I believe that while there is what we discussed before, there is and you started off the discussion, there's a very fine line between 4PL and 3PL. And the idea is to understand that fine line. Yeah. Because in the beginning, when Rajiv clearly mentioned like how 3PL differs from 4PL, and as I would say industry experts or somebody would understand that 3PL is a subset of 4PL, actually speaking. You have logistics and warehouse, which is their prime responsibility, or I would say service that they provide. Whereas 4PL acts more on a strategic level, where it takes the end-to-end supply chain into it. So I would say it's more about the understanding of 3PL service providers, that unless they want to, either they scale up their business and market themselves as 4PL service providers and tell it to the consumer, or I would say to their customers, that these are the services that we are providing, and then they actually become a 4PL service provider. But till the time they do that, I would say while there is a very fine line between 4PL and 3PL, the services provided by 4PL are way more at a strategic and an end-to-end level, which 3PL definitely, till he has that kind of expertise available with him, because warehouse logistics is one end of the spectrum, whereas when you're talking of taking over the supply chain of an organization, we are talking of a completely different skill set of people, which definitely 3PL cannot provide. It's not like they can stretch the people ki chalo unse ye kaam bhi karwa lete. Nahi, it's not like that. It's more like a tactical or a strategic level of people that we are talking of. So it's not about services, it's not about trucks or warehouses any longer. It's about people expertise, and I think it's a clear distinction. So as long as they are selling those services and they are able to provide those services or not provide those services, depending, the customer should be able to make the distinction about whose services they are taking. And we have definitely seen that most of the times the 4PL service providers, if the services are taken, they are clearly, I would say, coordinating on behalf of the customer. Correct. With the 3PL service. So it's not like the 3PL is out of the business unless the customer, as a first timer, is starting off with the 4PL, where the 4PL will already have a 3PL service provider. But if a customer already has a 3PL and then he decides to move to a 4PL, many a times 4PL kind of coordinates with the 3PL on behalf of the customer. And that's the idea of completely outsourcing or shifting your services outside. So I guess based on the, I would say, the common sense and the sensibilities of every service provider, these lines are very distinct, because we are talking of a hardcore hardware provider,
Yeah.
like logistics and warehouse and trucks. And then we're talking of people specific, because I would say personally, I feel from my experience or my knowledge, I feel 4PL is more about people sensibilities, basically, because that is where you are leaving your customers to be dealt by the 4PL service provider. So you have to be very careful who is going to talk to your customer, who is going to replenish your inventory, who is going to take care of your end customer service desk or something like that. So that is where you need the sensitivity of those people to come up. And that is when we are talking of a strategic or a / tactical expertise of 4PL. So yes, so I think while, as again emphasizing, the line is very fine, but at the same time, I think it's pretty clear, and it's for the people to really understand what services are they asking for, whether they should be going to a 3PL service provider or whether they should be going to a 4PL service provider.
No, very, very well said. In fact, as you rightly mentioned, there's clear distinction, but unfortunately, there are a lot of perception as we dwelled in the first part of the session is people are still thinking that 4PL, as you rightly mentioned, is kind of a brain, basically, which runs supply chain or logistics or how to optimize and those things, whereas 3PL is more of hardware. That's absolutely kind of clear distinction that people need to really compare. But also, I've seen just a kind of follow-up, anybody can contribute. I think my own experience is when you move to 4PL, naturally there is an expectation within company that your supply chain staff or logistics staff would be reduced because you're outsourcing everything. So there would be natural expectation. And that's where another challenge comes, because then there is a friction internally to really support service provider during onboarding training. So people try to really not onboard or give enough knowledge to service providers so that people have to come back to them or something like that. Have you experienced, anybody can really chip in basically, do you feel like these kind of behaviors, actually I've seen in a couple of places these behaviors cropping up, I would say within company, not to really make 4PL successful, but how do we deal with such situations, and do you see it as a common, or is just me?
Of course, there is a change management as an issue, because if you're sending everything, outsourcing it, the guy is outsourcing it himself is the first hurdle, because his job is going to somebody else now. So how do you navigate it becomes very important. Often the failure is also because of this aspect only, I would say. What more importantly, it is to see that, because Priyanka rightly mentioned that we are talking about people expertise who are coming in. So one is obviously person who is coming in has to be, one notch above. He should have better technology with him. He should have better access to the market than you. Otherwise, he will not be able to bring in the right efficiencies, I would say. And if he's spending more, his learning curve is very high, then your guys will be, jumping left, right, center and saying that why are we going for it? I mean, there would be business disruptions, and even one disruption is very magnified, because every issue will get magnified. And that is the reason why, another thing is, I think we will be discussing further on it also, that when you're handing over your operation to somebody else, you want to create a watertight contract with him, that if anything happens, I am going to come after you. But when I'm running it as a 3PL, do I go after myself when some disruption happens? I absorb it, right? But when I put a contract, my guy will put such a watertight contract around him that, anything my business goes down by this much, I will sue you by this much. So how will the 4PL work then? So somewhere, I mean, we also have to understand. And second, the cost part, which we were talking about just before this, cost will initially go up. I mean, how can the cost come down? Because he has to invest in the digital, stack, which you have not done till now. So both these things and efficiency will come after some time. Long-term efficiency, if you're looking at, then 4PL is a solution. If you're looking at a short-term crack, I think 3PL will also at time reduce to a 2PL activity.
Absolutely. Yes.
Sure, sir. See, the biggest challenge for 4PL and 3PL is that the trust. Again, I am saying.
Correct.
And because when I dealt with a lot of 4PL partners and very big 4PL partner, and when we try to explore someone who is very experienced and running very big chains for a long year, I saw the working itself is very complex. The type of costing sheet they have built and type of language or type of contract they want to build. When I was working with one of the MNC brand and we were launching in India and subsequently, and that was Burger King basically. And now it is around 300-400 store across India. But when we tried to explore different partners, it was very difficult to get the people who are very experienced. One, the cost. Second, the transparency. And third, the approach of Indian 4PL partners is that a new partner, whoever is coming or they want to support, they are not fully transparent. Whereas when I went to a very different industry segment and I dealt with the MNC 4PL partner, it was very transparent. So that is a very big hindrance in India, where if I want to give my dhanda to someone, I should have full trust to them, and they should be also transparent and should actually help us to grow or take over the entire business.
Sure. Thank you. Want to add something? Yeah.
So one more important thing is, as you rightly said, internally there's a lot of resistance, because what you said rightly is the fear of proving you wrong, that you have been running your company supply chain for so long, and someone comes and say you did a bad job. So that's first thing, even before appointing a 4PL. Second thing, once you appoint a 4PL, there are also resistance from your suppliers, because they are used to talking to you directly. And now he has to reach you through a third party, which they are not comfortable. Third, also your 3PL partners or your vendors who have been dealing with you directly have also challenges. They don't want to again have a mediator talking to you. And of course, at the end, they have to take also a cut, because from that cut only the 4PL guy is going to make some money. And sometimes customer also has to pay a little more to make these guys survive. So, and the third part and the last part is the employees. Once you engage a 4PL, many of the employees are passed on to the 4PL company. And that's where the huge resistance comes in. And generally, it has been seen 70-80% of the people leave. The good people actually leave the organization. So whatever good talent you had who has learned within the organization, you don't get that talent when the 4PL company comes in, and you have to again recruit fresh talents. And that's where there's a lot of gestation period which happens when the 4PL comes. There's at least 4 to 5 months to 6 months period of gestation required to settle down for a 4PL partner. And it goes through a turmoil, and definitely at certain times it takes a toll on the overall supply chain of the company and overall affecting the revenue and the profitability of the company. So these challenges are definitely there.
I would like to add to the answer that Nitin has raised a question about how does the businesses take it upfront, whether it is going to be a cost reduction and so and so. I had an experience, and which I would like to share with the panelists and the audience as well. We implemented the 4PL model in one of the country sitting in India, and that country had a higher labor charges and lot of cost involved. Unlike India, you get the manpower and all those things are in very cheap, not so cheap, but in compared to the globe. When we were sitting in the room, we were discussing and we were brainstorming around. Do we really want to save cost, or do we want to bring in efficiency? Yeah. Whether do we want to reduce our SLAs, or whether do we want to bring in the cost efficiency as a broader way? And then we thought of whether do we want to meet our or make our co-packers closer to the RM providers or not. These were the few such examples that we were brainstorming about. And the end result that we had, that 70% went towards the SLAs, the efficiency, and 30% went towards the cost. So that's my answer to your question.
No, I think that's really great. In fact, it really helps to decide your strategy upfront, that what you're chasing towards, right? Moving on, since we are on a topic of cost, Amartya, I would like to kind of take your thoughts on. I personally feel that, and as we dwelled upon in the beginning, that 4PL actually adds a layer between your existing whole ecosystem, which is their logistics ecosystem, and a company. And as you rightly mentioned, not only initial period, but yeah, you could have definitely incremental cost because there's an additional layer. Now, one of the whole reason why people implement 4PL is beside improving efficiency and those things is to really optimize cost, because nobody would otherwise do that. How does a well implemented 4PL kind of manage to kind of deliver such cost benefit in a longer run?
See, if you see 4PL holistically, why I will choose a 4PL? One, if I don't have productivity which I can get through my people, or I don't have business in such a large scale where I can utilize all the expertise which is needed to run the business. So I go to a 4PL who can hedge my that inefficiency, utilize their existing resources, and finally he is also winning the battle because he's making some money over that, and I am also winning the battle because I am getting same output for less cost. So 4PL will operate as a head where he will provide first thing is the continuity of the business with the right quality. So that is one thing. Second, whenever I go to a 4PL, the cost comes to a mind because obviously he's more expert than the core domain company. So if I'm selling a burger, so I need a food partner who can distribute the goods. So my core competency will be selling a burger, but the 4PL core competency will be distribution or procurements of the goods. So whenever I go 4PL, they will have much better hands to negotiate with the partners because they are more grounded to connected with the ground reality, and also guide the core company which way they need to. For example, if I am buying a bread from Hyderabad, they might guide you can get it in Cochin in lesser cost, and even the total cost for transportation is also making sense. So that type of intelligence 4PL need to give. Third advancement where cost efficiency comes is with the type of productivity. It can be a labor productivity, it can be a productivity of the ERP operator, or maybe the productivity of the procurement guy. So whenever they have the expertise how to increase the productivity, and for the long run, if they give the right resources and right tools to optimize the entire productivity of the org, then 4PL will give you benefit on the cost front. Third and fourth, which is more important, how they can be coping up with my expansion of the business, or maybe if I am not growing in business or maybe reducing business some geography, how they can give me a zero liability benefit in terms of scale and overall operation. So if I am a parent company, if I'm doing to 3PL or maybe my own captive, I might have a big chance where I don't optimize the cost as soon as I expand or decline the business. I will just give you a very unique example. Many places, Flipkart has also taken end-to-end operation when they were not grown so much, when they are not in 20,000, 24,000 pin code. When they are growing in cities like Kerala or Cochin, they have taken an end-to-end operation. It is not exactly 4PL, but picking up the goods to delivery, returns, everything they were managing through partners. So I'm just giving an example. It is a stage of the business also where 4PL can be immensely helpful, and I can focus on that. So finally, when 4PL understand my business and they have the expertise, overall, globally, it has seen 4PL benefit on the cost front.
Definitely. I think that's very true. You would like to add anything, or just, yeah. Otherwise, I just have just to continue the cost discussion, my own experience when we look at 4PL cost, there is a lot of kind of ambiguity or kind of around scope. So when company wants to outsource any operation, typically your during tender stage you would give a scope of work that this is what I want to deliver, and based on that, generally somebody will quote and try you award a contract and relationship start. But unfortunately, my own experience has been basically people don't spend much time to define scope or even explain the system or processes that you want to really deliver, and as a result, crack starts falling. So basically, you expect them to do more, or which is outside what was envisioned earlier, and then that, of course, nothing comes free. Then people expect more cost because they want to deliver more than what was expected, and that's where then people start realizing, the cost goes up. So how do we? Is it really common, or how do we deal with?
I just want to
yeah.
add, listen, Amrit has actually spoken a very good thing initially.
Yeah.
He told because companies doesn't support when they start burning or they go in the wrong direction. And in India also, what we have seen, 4PLs are not getting the full transparency of the knowledge and what is
Exactly.
happening within the company, so that they can also change, because the contract gives the liability to the 4PL only. Hence, the companies are also reluctant to help. So that mindset, I think, need to be changed.
Anybody else want to add anything to this on the scope part, or any experiences there? Yeah, if not, I think Ronit, I would like to come to you with a kind of different question on 4PL. Technology plays a really kind of, I would say, it is a backbone, as we just mentioned, because finally it's about brain. It's about kind of how do we plan, how do we really execute and optimize. So it's definitely a kind of core element of success for any successful 3PL. So what are some cutting edge technologies which are kind of revolutionizing 4PL industry in India? How 4PLs are realizing it, and how mature these technologies are in India, if you are to really look at.
It's really good question, because a lot of panel you will notice that technology or the advancement of the software or the systems or the tools are always the one of the panel discussing about these things. See, technological advancement is pivotal for the businesses in India, especially when it comes to the 4PL businesses. There are several cutting edge technologies, which includes real time tracking, IoT, enabled devices to have the visibility and the real time tracking, not only of your shipments, also related to your assets. So one live example, as per my experience, which I would want to give all to or provide to all of you, is related to the uh, some equipments I had in my previous organization, and we wanted to keep the track of their life cycles, their usage, their place of the storage, as well as the visibility throughout the entire system. And at the same time, we were also looking to procure some spare parts whenever the life cycle were reaching to its limits, and it was done automatically through the system. I'm talking the company of Red Bull. So when I was working there, we implemented these things, and the spare parts were getting procured, somewhere in the UK and landing in India with the advanced planning in the system, that 10 days before the actual when it was needed, it was going through all the sailing period of 28 through the sea, the pre-order, the pre-blocking, the pre-system management, in the terms of that by the time your equipment is going under the maintenance, the spare parts is already sitting in the vicinity of that particular town in the country near to that warehouse. So that is how one day's real-time tracking has helped. The second one, which is everybody talk about, cloud-based WMS, TMS. This helps a lot in terms of managing your shipment. So I will not talk in detail, because this WMS, TMS now runs into the veins of the logistics people. Yeah, so that's the second one. Third one, which is a lot of people talk about AI, ML, but I would like to put it very simply in the terms of data analytics. Yeah, so when we do have a visibility of the procurement of your RM in the system, that when the EOQ is moving down, the economic order quantity I'm talking about, and when the production is scheduled, and whether you are reaching to the bias of your production planning, and when particular RM or the ingredients or the PM needs to be ordered. So that is kind of the system that the 4PL comes with a lot of tools in place, and it's getting utilized in India. Unfortunately, we are lesser mature in India, but the initiatives by the government, says Digital India and all those things, are taking a pace, but we are moving slow as compared to US and Europe. These three I would, I thought of talking about. There are many, but these three are going in the top in country currently. Thank you.
No, absolutely. In fact, and sorry, I think to cut you, but just to add to his, I think one of the system government is trying to implement is ULIP, where I think it's probably trying to integrate all the service providers system versus government to ease. Sorry, Rajiv, you were saying something.
So, to add on to what Ronit has said, uh, one of the most important responsibility of a 4PL player is to integrate all the systems. Now, a WMS doesn't talk to a TMS. A TMS doesn't talk to a vendor management system or to a your distribution or a retail channel POS system. Now, the biggest challenge is to integrate this different system which are on different platforms. Now, one platform could be on .NET, another platform could be on a ROR, third platform could be on a C++, Java. Now, all these different systems to integrate together and you view a unified information for your analytics, for your machine learning is something which is a key essence for a 4PL company. So, the better they have this integration platform, I think their performance and the productivity will definitely improve. Because we see this problem even in large corporations, like even uh, in the companies who have large software companies in-house or their sister concerns, their integration is so complex because even the software company is not able to integrate the system because they're using multiple departments, multiple divisions are using multiple systems, and to integrate them is a humongous task. And many of these systems are legacy systems which doesn't have open APIs. So that's a challenge which these 4PL companies will always have to integrate the entire systems and bring it together of different suppliers within the company and also their partners and even the POS front when it's a retail company. So that's a big challenge.
No, absolutely. I think I cannot agree more than what you guys have already said. In fact, I'll share one of my personal experience on this particular topic. So I was visiting a particular country and they were trying to demonstrate 4PL control tower to me. And so eventually I started talking to the guys who were looking at control tower and all that. And obviously, when you look at all the 4 or 5 different big screens and everything, it looks very nice. But eventually, when I asked them really difficult, can you show me, this particular truck and a delivery and something like that? Finally, at the end of the day, वो Excel पे ही आ गया finally. so that was really so then I tried to ask the guys, why are you still dependent on Excel? So the story was integration. I think the reason I'm trying to share this example, that because of government regulations, the requirement was to have server within the country. Otherwise, they would not allow you to really integrate with any other system which is not in the country. And hence they were not able to integrate, and hence Excel and those kind of things. So I can't agree more that integration is a pain point in many areas, and especially with the
And after you integrate, there are mismatch of data. When you sit down and do reconciliation of the data.
Absolutely, that's the next level. Rajiv, I think while we are on the same topic, I think since you are from logistics industry, I would like to ask some insights about kind of 4PL market itself. How do you see 4PL market? What's the size of the market? How it is evolving? What's the growth rate that you see in the market? And could you also share, if possible, I think any success story that where you have seen basically 4PL implementation has led to a kind of tangible business outcomes.
There are certain research which does show some numbers. Of course, the numbers keeps varying, but some of the authentic numbers which I got is pegging the 4PL market around $37.5 billion market in India. Wow. So that's quite a sizable size what it is showing. And it is expected to grow at about CAGR about 7 to 8%. That's what is the prediction, which will land up at around $53 billion market by around 2028. So that's what some of the research are pointing the numbers towards that. But however, within these numbers, this 37.5 billion, you can say majority is the warehousing part of it. So if you see the warehousing part of it, which is about 31.7 billion square feet, million square feet, which is now there currently, which is going to go to about 4.9 million square feet in 2028. Now, if I see the whole landscape of that, I think 70% of the 4PL share is actually on the warehousing part. Balance 30% is on the other part of the 3PL. So, there is a lot of scope, and particularly with the automobile industry, which now is trying to also export from here, and we hear of Tesla's coming in and other companies coming in. So automobile obviously will adopt. So to give a use case, I think Dalmia, then your Ashok Leylands, these are the companies who are already using 4PL in some portion of their overall supply chain. And they have outsourced to companies, Indian companies as well as multinationals, to manage their overall supply chain. The another part is the e-commerce part of it, which is growing definitely at a very high rate in India. And the advantage of e-commerce, particularly the startups and D2C businesses, is that they want to focus on their core competency, which is basically the marketing part of it and the product part of it. Now, their expertise on the supply chain is very, very weak, actually. When you talk to this company, even Sugar for that matter, when they started off, their knowledge about supply chain was very limited. They knew how to make the product, how to market the product. So that's where they depend on people like the 4PL company to actually take care of the supply chain. And the second part is the scalability. So these companies are growing at a very fast pace. Now, if they have to build a warehouse, they have to go and search a warehouse, first of all, in Nilmangla and build a warehouse. By that time, his product is already grown 2x, 3x. So that kind of growth, what these D2C companies and the e-commerce companies are doing, to sustain that, I think they need people like 4PL company who can actually support them in terms of the scalability and the reach what they want to in a fast pace. Then the another thing is, when these companies are small, the large 3PL companies or the logistic companies don't give them that much of a value, because so suppose if you are doing multiple places, you want to distribute, and you have a say for example billing of only 5-6 lakhs, no large company will be ready to do your all India business, because there's a lot of coordination which goes on. So that's where you need to give everything together as a package to a company who can manage the entire thing for you. So with those things, I think what the predictions they're talking about, it's 7-8% or 10% CAGR, I think it's quite a sizable business, and the size is also not small at all. So definitely this is going to grow. This is going to...
Absolutely. Yeah.
See, I have very different perception on 4PL growth. Total warehousing growth is around 13-14% year on year. And as per you only, you're saying 8% is a 4PL. Yeah, 4PL. Yeah, I know. So 4PL. So if warehousing is growing at 13-14%, the 4PL at 8%, that means there is no traction. Pure play, if you see 4PL in India, apart from warehousing, there are only 3-4% growth. Okay. Good companies understand the startups like Sugar. We are clocking around 500-600 CR today. We have burnt in the initial stage, so we have never taken any 4PL. It was always on captive. We have burnt money in captive also, but we have been captive, and then we went to 3PL. Indian mindset for smaller, maybe the segment wise, when you grow from 50 CR to 100 CR to 200 to 1000 CR, those businesses are not relying on 4PL, and that is a fact. Yeah. If you go to any company, Zepto is taking 4PL, no, it is growing. Flipkart has taken 4PL, no, it was growing. So any growing company, that is the reason 4PL has not grown so much as it should be. But if you see 3PL, they have taken a big leap. The growth is huge and people have started relying. The only problem is, again, it comes on that we have not invested. The trust has not been built so far. and we have not got proper options. If there is an option, people love to go to 4PL. But as of now, I don't see the growth is so high when the businesses are growing so much. But 4PL has not taken the pie it should be. And it is not good. Actually, it is not good for anyone because every company is somehow wasting the energy or maybe resources somewhere. If 4PL growth is there, it is good for the entire country where logistical resources which is been wasted or inefficient, that can be optimized for the future.
Absolutely.
In fact, we were talking on the lounge itself that what is the benchmark where you move to a 4PL or you come out of a 4PL, and that's a question you have to decide as an organization when to get in, when to get out, because the margin what you are extra paying to a 4PL company as a cost, that should offset your own setup or getting into 3PL from a 4PL
or other
or vice versa.
or other inefficiencies to reduce your inefficiencies basically. In fact, Amataji, with the kind of initiatives that government is projecting, for example, Gati Shakti or multimodal parks or something, do you see that it would help to really boost 4PL kind of setup in India, or it's still like that?
It will. There are improvement. But see, even you go to any sector, there are only 4-5 cities which are actually driving the growth of supply chain. We need good brands who are fully integrated, number one. There are good international brand which is available with one part of the business intact. But other part is that we are a very dynamic country. The expansion of business is very different. You see the difference of businesses which is happening for last 12 months. The general trade somewhere is not growing so much. Modern trade is also stagnant. E-com, that is growing in a very fast way. They are building different warehouses. So entire primary, secondary logistic game is changing within 1 year of time. So if 4PL come with a strategy, no, I will build 1,000 crore business with multiple brand, they are not able to consume where the growth is happening. So till India is growing, and from childhood we are developing country only, that is also a thing. So it is difficult for international players who are very recognized across the world to get as fast as we are. Second, reliability, like companies like us also need to start relying on the people who have expertise. I think if both are matching, 4PL growth will happen. And 4PL growth is needed for countries like India.
Absolutely. Very well said. Amritpalji, I would like to come to you with a bit of a, while we said implementation, technology and everything, but always there's a risk when you implement 4PL. What risk that businesses should be aware while implementing 4PL? And could you maybe elaborate on 2 or 3 risks that you see that really needs to be considered from a business perspective?
I think we covered a lot of it in our conversation actually. I mean, you were talking about trust. Maybe if now I speak it as more about summarizing it.
Yeah.
One is the trust factor, because in India it's very difficult for people to, leave it for somebody else to do their, job. Second part is also the data stack. How do you build it and how you create the transparencies in it? Thirdly is obviously you are, this is your go-to market, right? And do you want it to be totally in control of somebody else? And later on, let's say now this 4PL is doing wonderfully well, but tomorrow the efficiencies drop with him, and then you don't even have staff who can, again take it over back. Let's say you want to go captive, and then you don't even know what is the, freight going on in the market in the, last 2 years or 3 years. You lost that ability, It's something like I shipped my production to China, and later on I don't know how to make those ventilators when I needed them in US, or mask even, you couldn't make them yourself because you became too dependent on them.
Correct.
So that insecurity, because it's the last leg of your whatever you're producing, you have to sell. You don't want to have that kind of a blackmail. So sometimes that is also playing a part when people look at 4PL as, giving everything, all my headed to somebody, and just think I'll concentrate on my core business. So I think eventually I also feel that some of the 3PL will themselves involve into 4PL, and that is what is going to be the natural progression or path. And as you get more confident in them, you will start offloading more to them. We have seen examples, especially e-commerce itself has become such a strong backbone in the country, and they can easily act as 4PL for small companies, and which is happening when you see Mokobara or some, new players coming into the market. We were discussing on launch also the same thing. They are totally reliant on their entire logistics is reliant on the marketplace, right? They just put it on the website and sell it. I mean, as a e-commerce, and then the entire logistic headache is with the Flipkarts and I've even seen now Samsungs and Philips of the world are also putting their websites, Adidas, Nike. They're not even relying on the marketplace. They're also putting up their own website and selling through that, right? So it's all growing, and because the efficiency which is coming from these players is very high. So I feel that nobody can stop it from growing. It's just that maybe it's going to take some more time. For smaller player, it is a boon. For a larger player, I think captive becomes more important because of the sensitivity of the business. As and when the confidence grows and the digital stack transparency grows, I think it is eventually going to come to most of the businesses. That's my take.
Yeah, sure. I think we are almost running out of time, but a last question that is an open question and anybody can pick it up. I think is about key performance indicators. So, in order to really implement a successful 4PL operations, what are the top two or three KPIs that business should really look at in order to really measure that, okay, we are moving in the right direction? So, what would be 2 or 3 key ones basically? In anybody can pick it up. Is just any thoughts around that? Good.
Yeah. Hi. So again, I think KPI, I think would matter a lot about the end industry that we are talking of, about as in who is the client.
Yeah.
So, but I would say that something which would stay common to each one of them is the turnaround time or the speed, basically,
Yeah.
because that is what you are actually taking the 4PL this thing for. And one would be speed for sure, which will encompass a lot of factors, including safety, turnaround time, minimum damages, and everything. It's not like you deliver it fast, but उसमें crack आ गया है और वो damage हो गया और leakage हो गया. Obviously, the speed encompasses a lot of other things, which will be a subset of that. And second, I think the entire pretext of taking a 4PL would be cost. So I think somewhere once what Amartya and Rajiv were very rightly saying, that it may not happen from day one, but once it matures and 4PL is a very trusted and a strategic partner of yours, and you've reached that level that you've actually started giving him KPIs, because obviously I'm sure from the first day you can't expect them to do that. But I think the second one would be cost to quite an extent. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah.
One more point to add is on the KPI is the sustainability part, which is
Indeed.
becoming more and more complex today. Now, for an organization to track sustainability and the traceability of their entire supply chain is not very easy for a small and a mid-sized company, and that's where I think this 4PL can add value with their process, with the system. They should be able to track and integrate those sustainability goal factors into their KPIs.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one more point I think coming to my mind, especially for businesses, I think also considering there are a lot of disruptions, I think what are the business contingency plans that 4PL has, I think would be good to measure how soon they are able to really cope up with the uncertainties that come on their way. We are almost running out of time. So with that, I had a lot of questions, but unfortunately, we are almost on the hour. So any questions from audience that they would like to pick up? Okay. If not, then let's thank all our panelists for really very insightful discussions. Thank you so much for your knowledge sharing quite openly. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause. Absolutely insightful session. I'm sure this was not just a decision. It truly painted a picture on how 3PL logistics is shaping the future of supply chains. Thank you to our panelists and our moderator.